Welcome to the Bowls Hour, brought to you by Summerset Retirement Villages and Dynasty Apparel. Today we're talking to CEO of Bowls New Zealand, Mark Cameron, umpire extraordinaire Wendy Suttie about her Commonwealth Games experience, and then Paul Hunt, the new centre manager for Bowls Bay of Plenty. But Alex is here with me, and Alex is going to give us a rundown on a few bits and pieces that's happened in the weekend and what's coming up.
That is what I'm going to do.
Hi, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I have a question.
Go on.
I put it out there to the world about starting last week. We had a lyric, we had a song in there, and everyone needed to fill in the lyric. Did you even put that out there?
I did, and some people did get it right.
Nice.
Lee Cutler, who's one of my clubmates at Point Chevalier.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate that.
She seemed bamboozled that I didn't know it.
Wow, I think everyone would.
Which is fair enough. So for those who didn't, it was from The Sound of Music,
Sound
wasn't
of
it?
Music. Doe, a deer. A female deer.
So on and so forth.
Yeah, is how you get to that commonly known song, the very popular song.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how it goes at the beginning, many a Christmas Day movie watching time that has been.
Yeah, I was disappointed in myself because I have seen that movie
I was
on a few occasions, and it is a good film, and I think it's aged well. What I wanted to do, and it was something we'll do more often because now we're moving back into the summer months when outdoor bowling's actually happening.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
And a bag of chips. I'm going to start doing some reviews of the events, and we'll look forward onto the Bowls New Zealand Summer Bowls calendar and see what events are coming up, and we'll see if we can get people involved in those events onto the podcast as well and that sort of stuff. So for this week, on the weekend, the Ivan Kostinich singles was played in North Harbour. It's a premier singles in memory of Ivan Kostinich, who's one of the legends of our game, and that was won by Bart Robertson from North Harbour, which is quite nice because Bart's uncle Pat Robertson won the national pairs with Ivan Kostinich in the mid-80s.
Nice.
So there's that nice connection
There's a
there.
little connection there, yeah.
So that was cool. So that's the only Summer Bowls event that was run last weekend, and coming up on the Summer Bowls calendar, they've got the Clinico Morrinsville Classic this weekend, which should be pretty cool. We spoke to Kevin Hansen a few weeks ago on the Bowls Hour, and he was talking about it, and they've invited Val Smith and Joe Edwards up to participate, which is neat, and they've got themselves some sponsorship. And I'd encourage anyone, if you just go onto Facebook and search Morrinsville Bowling Club, Clinico have created their first ever video ad in support of this event, or as part of this event, and they used bowlers and the bowlers' grandchildren as the talent.
Oh yes.
And one of the bowlers' houses is the set, and it's quite funny. It's quite good. It's quite good. So it's great to have that support from Clinico there, and we'll bring you the results of the Morrinsville the classic when it's finished.
And Morrinsville's not that far from Auckland, not that far from Waikato, not that far from Bay of Plenty. So if people wanted to go and have a good watch, see Val and Joe in action, that's be easy to get to as long as they're not playing bowls, because that's pretty much what's happening now at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't do that. I've got bowls this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. But it'll be worth watching, and I believe there'll be some live streaming available. Yep. Maybe I think after the fact. I can't recall. I'm not going to go and say anything. But once we do know,
don't go handing out those hospital passes.
we'll share information on that. And the other thing I wanted to do, because I haven't had an opinion for a while, Erin, on this show.
That's strange.
I know, and I haven't sort of posited a thought, and I thought I would think.
You thought you would think.
And I was having a think, and I thought, well, there's lots of thoughts and thinkings going on.
Okay, Pooh Bear.
Goodness gracious me. I could write a children's book. But I just wanted to talk about sort of the best way of finding winners for events.
Yes.
Because it's always an interesting conversation for me.
Yes.
And it is dependent on how many people enter the event. But like for me, my favourite system is the 2 life system, which means you essentially get 2 bites of the apple.
Sorry, when you said finding a winner for an event, I just instantly thought about where you'd go to look for results. Not how the competition would play.
That works as well. Bowls Hub's the answer to that question.
I was wondering
where I was going to go with that conversation.
Yeah, anyway, back to it.
So 2 life system's my favourite one, Erin, because you get 2 goes, and it takes into account the fact that if you everyone can get unlucky and lose a game, or you can play badly and lose a game, and you're penalised, but you still have a chance of winning.
Yes.
So I think you get a really fair result with 2 life system.
Yeah.
But I do understand that it can take a very long time with large numbers.
Yeah.
And there is that challenge there. I don't know. I've never been a fan of the events you turn up and play 4 games. There might be 20 teams and you play 4 games and your 4 winner just gets given the trophy.
Okay.
I always like there to be some sort of final, but I'll be interested to hear people's feedback because there's so many different ways of working out who your winner is for all these different events. I'll be interested on feedback as to what the best system is that people think exists.
And I think it kind of might depend as well about the history and tradition behind the competition, because some competitions we understand might be those 4-day ones where it's good because you get a group of people in that you haven't seen forever and you get to enjoy their time, and it's more important about actually playing against them and seeing them when you haven't seen them for months than it is to find a winner in a certain way and stuff like that. So we get that side of it, and if you've got competitions that run like that, that's fine. You keep running those because it's more important. Like, it's a very important community and sport and social element there. But just in general, competitions, if you could fit more bowls in and get more winners happening.
It's always just an interesting conversation. Or even if you think about the Bowls 3-5 that we had for a couple of years on the TV league, that was a double round robin, wasn't it? The first time round.
Yep.
So everyone played each other twice, and then you took the winner went, or the top seed went straight through to the final. And you had that sort of stuff's cool as well. So
a little bit of a playoff to see second and third. So that's like a double bite at that apple, isn't it?
Yep.
So second and third would play. The loser of that game, just outright third, second gets a chance at the big money, and then same at the other end. So the bottom place is out. Then fourth and fifth, or fifth and sixth, or sixth and seventh, however many teams we upped our team names. Anyway, the second to last and the third to last team would play. What the winner would be safe, and then the loser would have to play again the opposite direction to make sure that they could stay in.
I quite like it, and the relegation promotion stuff. And the other thing that I thought was interesting before we move on to Mark Cameron, who is eagerly waiting to join us in the studio, is do we have a playoff for third and fourth in bowls?
Well, then do you have a playoff for fourth and fifth? Do you have fifth and sixth?
In curling, or in most other sports, they find a third place alone.
Yeah.
In bowls, we have third equals everywhere. Club events, centre events, national events.
Yeah.
We go, you lose a semi-final, you've got third equal.
Unless you're at the Commonwealth Games, in which case you have to play for the bronze medal.
And that's interesting to me as well. Should we be playing off for third and fourth? I'm interested to hear people's thoughts. I don't know. I don't even know what the answer is, Erin. My instinct is no, but that's only because I've only ever known third equal. Maybe we should play off for third and fourth and make that a spectacle.
Yeah. Well, I don't like sharing. I want to be the third person. Not the
so you'd
third or fourth.
You'd want to play off for
I'd
third
want to
and
play
fourth.
off for third or fourth. Yeah.
I don't know, it's interesting. So I'm just chuck that out into the ether. If anyone's got any opinions on any of the above, we'll probably read them out next week on the Bowls
we
Hour.
might even ask Mark.
Yes.
When we've got him on.
We'll see how long it goes.
Awesome. So that is our little catch up with Alex. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Mark Cameron here on the Bowls Hour. Welcome back to the Bowls Hour, brought to you by Summerset Retirement Villages and Dynasty Apparel. We now have Mark Cameron. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's good. Thank you, Erin. Great welcome. Yes, so we've got Mark. She's very pleased with herself. We thought we'll ask you a few questions. I think we'll start with the question that we just finished with. So we're going to get to the Nationals eventually, but I've just had a little rant about not conditions to play, but the way to find a winner for an event.
And it's not Googling results, by the way.
And it's not one of your silly little questions.
No, that's coming up. You wait for that one. And then I talked about, because it just popped into my brain, and we saw it at the Commonwealth Games, they play off a third and fourth. What are your thoughts? Like when we have a centre event or a national event even, and it's knockout, at the moment, and most of bowls that I've known for my entire life, you get third equal. So you both get like your third equal prize. Should there be a playoff for third and fourth?
So I have a view internationally then, and I have a view versus local community stuff. Like Com Games, I think it's special. Having a bronze medal at a Coms game or having that playoff match at a Coms game is great. The World Champs, interestingly though, shares the bronze, so there is no third playoff. And whilst the administrator and me loves it because there's more of a chance of getting another bronze medal from it, I just wonder whether that's right as well. I think actually at that top level, and when you're going for you're going for that dais, or to be on the dais, the winning with the winners, that I think you should play off the third. At community level though, no. I think that, and that's not to disrespect the community side of the game. It does sound like it, I know, but actually it's not that important. And I imagine at community level there'll be plenty of people that will go, look, I've just lost my semi-final. I'm not interested in playing for a bronze medal or third place game. So I'd just separate the two things out, internationally versus the high end versus the, shall we say, the community side of the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a reasonable response. I'm just looking forward. I'll be interested to see the feedback from the community, because we asked a couple of questions in the first segment, and just to see what people's thoughts and feelings are on that. I know, having spoken to Tessa Farley, whose sister was on the podcast a while ago, and curling, they're very much for the third and fourth, and I get accused of there being no spirit in bowls, that we don't play off for third and fourth. So it's mainly for the curlers. It'll be interesting to see what they say.
What does indoor bowls do?
We have third equal.
You opened the door for the conversation.
I wasn't even trying to get an indoor bowls thing in. No, indoor bowls is third equal, and they decided that in the mid-50s mark, because they didn't want the playoff for third and fourth to take away from the playoff for the champion.
The Indoor Bowls Hour, brought to you by Summerset Retirement Villages.
I'm going to cut that
Dynasty
out.
Apparel.
Very good, you've listened to it enough. Right, so the next thing I thought we could chat about, Mark, Nationals. We've got the upcoming Summerset National singles pairs, fours and mixed pairs. What have you got to tell us about them?
That we're looking forward to it. The entries should open next week, so beginning of October sometime. I think we're just putting the final touches at the moment to the conditions of the play. But everyone will be entering via Bowls Hub. So if you don't have your profile set up, you'll need to do that. So enter via Bowls Hub, pay your fee. I think it's $49.50 per player, per member. That enters each event. Singles and pairs in Auckland, Auckland North Harbour. Sorry, I should say North Harbour first, and then Auckland second.
Yeah.
And then the fours and mixed pairs down there in Central Otago, which I think the entire bowls community is looking forward to. I think going back to Central Otago will be a terrific event. Book your holidays, book your accommodation, grab your rental vans or whatever it might be, and make the most not only the bowls but the area as well, because special part of the country, great vineyards, great restaurants, great scenery, and very good bowling clubs as well.
But not much chicken at the KFC.
No, and great cheese rolls from Ruth.
Yes, yeah. No, it should be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what a crowd you get for the... You okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that I've just done a great spiel on bowls and community and nationals.
Sorry, I cling on to
and
these things.
And you've brought it down to KFC and cheese rolls.
I was very hungry, and it was the end of a long day, and we went to the KFC drive-thru, and we were able to order a veggie burger.
I feel like this is not an intellectual bowls hour, is it?
He can cut that bit out.
Just a veggie burger.
What is more important is the appreciation for Ruth and her cheese rolls.
Yep, but even more than that, it will be cool to finally see a final played at that headquarters where we're able to use the facilities to the best of what they meant to be. You know, it was disappointing last time round when we had those restrictions.
Yeah, it was quite unique though, wasn't it? Having people watching from outside fences and things.
I enjoyed the
couch on the back of the truck.
That was quite impressive.
Yep.
That's the most New Zealand thing I think I've ever seen. There's a fella on a couch on a ute.
Yep.
You wouldn't get that in an indoor bowls arena, would you?
You could try.
So let's talk a little bit more seriously though. So not a lot of changes this year except for one major one.
Yes.
So fours and mixed pairs. The mixed pairs, though, we need to drop it down. So we're actually going to drop down to 12 end games.
Yep.
For the mixed pairs. But what will happen with mixed pairs now is there'll be 2 days of qualifying. So you'll have to win 4 out of 6 games over 2 days. So you play 3 games on day 1 and 3 games on day 2 potentially, and then the post section runs for the next 2 days. So we literally ran out of daylight last year with 16 ends, and especially when we had to run 4 games in a post section day. So that's the major change in terms of the mixed pairs, and the other major changes in the singles and pairs space in early January. And what we're doing this year is we're going to we've created an open disability grade. So the B5, B8 para nationals, or para section I should say, and the B1, B4 vision impaired section, they'll go, and they've been replaced by an open disability grade. That means that, and we're still working through what those criteria will be, but effectively saying that if you have a disability that impacts on your game of bowls, and that disability can't just be that you're not very good. There has to be a medical disability.
Yeah.
Then you can play in this open disability grade. So it means that the vision impaired can play against the hearing impaired. Those with physical disability potentially can play against those with an intellectual disability. Those that use the bowling arms, do we have a better name for that than that?
No, they're literally called bowling arms.
The mechanical arms.
Yeah.
And those people that are legitimately using them for medical reasons, i.e. their back, their knees, their hips or whatever are gone, they can play in this grade as well. So it's open disability. The singles will take place for 4 days. So we'll play 2 days of qualifying and then 2 of post-section. And then the pairs will also take place. In pairs you can combine disabilities, etc. Now we know that there's going to be teething problems with this. People will say, well, how do you determine, whether someone's got a disability or not, or is it fair putting up a hearing impaired person against someone who's vision impaired, etc. Yes, and yes to all of those things. There are issues with all of the stuff, but the intent here is very clear, and that is to promote a message of inclusion in our sport. So it doesn't matter who you are, you can play in our game. And what we're doing through this is we're actually elevating that open disability grade up. I'm using my hands to demonstrate these things while I'm talking to you. We're putting that open disability grade up there with the open ladies, open women's, and open men's grades, which is really exciting. Relying a lot on trust for people to actually be honest about disability and how it impacts on their game, but at the same time we want as many people as possible to play in this grade. So that's the intent. It's different, or I say it's different, but it's something similar to what the Aussies have done with their open section as well, or one of their sections. So a little bit different.
So where did it was an idea that's been bubbling away for the last few years since the Summerset Nationals have had a para component since Christchurch 3 or 4 years ago. Was this where you saw it going, or is it a new thought?
Oh no, I think it's just it's crystallising that whole thinking around inclusion and our sport being open to anyone. And the danger we have is that we start creating these classifications, these B6, B8s, B1, B4s, or whatever they might be, hearing impaired, we're almost setting ourselves up to open up classifications for others as well. And I the example that was raised with me was that a young gentleman who's got Down syndrome and he wants to play bowls, or he's playing bowls. Where does he play in our Summerset Nationals system? And at the moment, the only place he can play is in the open men's category. But under this structure, he could actually play in the open disability category, potentially playing someone who's vision impaired or hearing impaired or physically disabled or whatever it might be. So that's it. I think it's just a crystallisation of the thinking that actually we are, and we promote ourselves as being a very inclusive sport. Let's demonstrate this through our nationals. Now, in terms of those that want to play in those classifications, they still can, of course, because there is in Invercargill this year, there's a B5, B8 a para physical disability nationals. There's a vision impaired nationals. There's a hearing impaired nationals. So they all exist. Just for these Summerset Nationals, we are looking to create this open disability
larger event. That's cool.
I think it's a nice one too, because as you say, if someone's got the mental disability, they can go along to this competition. They might have family members who are also competing, so they don't have to go there on their own. They've got people who will also be competing around them that they know, and they can come back and they can talk about it, and it's just a little bit more support for them too.
I think so. Look, I think the category that will go off will be the peers. Because I think
there's going to be some cool combinations there too, isn't there, Mark?
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. Is that when you see those combinations coming through, will be really, really nice. I think the singles initially be quite daunting for a number of people. I could end up playing against such and such and such and such. I can understand that, but I think the pairs could be the one that actually works really well. Of course, those people with disabilities, they don't have to play in the open disability grade. They can play in the open men's, open women's grade as well. It's their choice. So that's where we're heading with this. And as with everything, we're giving it a go. And we'll get some feedback after the Summerset Nationals this year. If it's not working, if the feedback isn't good, then we look to change it up or change it down, or whichever way you describe it, change it around.
Very good. Oh, that's interesting, Mark. And thank you for talking to us about the Summerset Nationals. Now, we've been talking for 13 and a half minutes, which is about, that's about right, and a half. That's about right. So we're going to move on to the bonus question now. And I will admit that we've been stuck on food for a while. Probably the last 20 weeks we've had food questions at the end of every segment.
They're good questions.
So I've changed it up a little bit this week, Mark. So my question for you is twofold. It's about books. You look so excited. It's about books. So I'd like to know how you most like to consume your books. Like, do you read or listen? And then after that, what your favourite book or favourite author is.
Of all time.
Of all time.
I think you know the answer to this question with me. But anyway, we'll go with it because we've got an audience, don't we?
No one else knows
Yeah. So I am a habitual, is that the word?
Yes.
Audio book listener. So I have at least 300 or 400 audio books in my collection already over the last 5 or 10 years. And I listen to audio books in the car. I listen to audio books during the night, and what an audio book enables me to do is unwind. So my thinking goes in a totally different direction to work or whatever it might be. So that's how I unwind. So I have lots and lots of books, audio books, listening books. In terms of favourite authors and things like that, I'm very much I'm listening to redoing the Lee Child series at the moment,
yes,
with Jack Reacher. So redoing those ones at the moment. So I kind of like the James Patterson, Lee Child type books, but every now and again I'll branch out into something a little bit different. I bought Will Smith's audio biography.
Yes.
Only 2 days before he stood up and got his Oscars thing.
Ooh.
And I started listening. I listened for 2 days to this audio book from Will Smith, and then he did his Oscars thing, and at that point I thought, this isn't the guy that's pretending to be in the book, so I stopped listening to Will Smith's book anymore. But it did cost me a bit of money, that book, so maybe I should go back to it one day.
Else, yeah.
Maybe I should forgive him.
Perfect example of actions speaking louder than words.
Yes.
Literally and figuratively.
Thanks, Erin.
Got to chime in. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, Mark. You've been a treat. Coming up next, we now have Wendy Suttie here on the Bowls Hour. Welcome back to the Bowls Hour, brought to you by Summerset Retirement Villages and Dynasty Apparel. We are now speaking with Wendy Suttie. And Wendy, you've been away at the Commonwealth Games just recently, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yes, I did.
How did it go?
Well, I had a really good time, put it that way. An amazing event to be a part of, and a huge privilege and honour to be there as a member of the ITO team.
That's cool. And Alex is probably going to get into more of these questions. I just had to jump in there first because I wanted to introduce you that way.
No, it was good. You did well, Erin. I enjoyed listening. So, Wendy, we had you on the show before you went. So just in case, I'm sure everyone listens to every one of these episodes, but in case someone listening to this hasn't listened to that episode, could you just talk us through what sort of preparation you had to do as an ITO to get to the Commonwealth Games in the first place?
Well, first of all, you have to qualify as an ITO for a start, which is doing an exam through World Bowls. So that was the first step, was being an ITO, and I think there's about 20 of us in the country in New Zealand, all through the country. Then I had to apply. They called for applications, and you had to apply. And there was a selection process, and then they notified me that I had been offered the appointment. I have to say that I was a wee bit iffy about it because when they came in, that was we were all in COVID and we were still having to isolate when we came back into the country. And I was a wee bit sceptical about that. But however, over the week that I had to reply, those rules changed. So I grabbed the opportunity with both hands.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Then there was, I had to do a lot of fitness. So I did a lot of walking, swimming, biking, and that sort of stuff. Make sure I was fit enough to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
So on that point, we watched a little bit of the TV, and I wasn't catching all of the singles games because a lot of the broadcast was showing us the teams games and so on. What would your day look like at the Commonwealth Games, Wendy?
Okay, so there were 4 sessions in a day, and each session had 2 rounds in it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first session started at 8:30 in the morning. If you were on at 8:30 in the morning, generally I'd be up at 5 o'clock. We'd be at the green by about 7, and then we had to do all the pre-game set-up stuff, which umpires do.
Yep.
And so you'd be on duty for the 2.5 hours. So the session would start at 8:30 and finished at 10:30, 11 o'clock, depending on the time limits for the game. Then the next session would start a half an hour after that. And generally if you were allocated the first session in the morning, you probably had the second one off and then you did the third one.
Yep.
Or you might be on the second and the fourth, or you might be on the first and the fourth. You did 2 sessions a day generally.
Yeah. And
the day would finish, if you were on the last session of the day, you'd finish about 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and your umpires are quite often discreet around a green. You don't always see them, but are you always on call? You're always sitting there watching. Did you have to stand the entire time you were looking after a green?
Yes, if you're allocated as an umpire, yes, you do. And for every round, there were 2 umpires on each green, and there were 4 greens operating. So there were 8 of us on as umpires. There would also be a roving umpire, so someone that just came and made sure everything was all right and was an extra pair of hands. If 2 umpires were doing a duty, then they would step in and do a call if it was needed. There would be a timekeeper because there are slow play provisions and that operate at Com Games. So there'd be a timekeeper, and there was also a 4th umpire that I can't remember what they used to do.
A lot of
there was 4 of them.
I've gone blank.
A lot of technical crew behind the scenes making it work and making it run smoothly though. Like we sitting there, we're watching these countries compete against each other, and everything was just running so well and so easy. So I think that's a testament to the actual preparation that the technical officials put in behind the scenes as well.
I think so, and I think for those, it was my first Commonwealth Games, and actually probably half of the crew that were appointed, it was their first Commonwealth Games, which was quite something. But the guys that have been there before and done it before, they help you along, and they make sure that if you've got a question, they can answer it, and it's a really good team. Everybody supports everybody, and that's what makes it work.
Nice.
So how long did it take to get called for a measure, Wendy?
About 10 minutes.
And can you talk us through? I'd like to just hear the story about your first measure and how it went.
Oh, well, I was on Green B. Well, fortunately, it wasn't the TV ring, I think. I can't remember if it was that one or not. But anyway, I just got called, and it was a basic box measure just between 2 bowls on the green. So at my end of the green. So,
done.
Nice and simple. Yep. No nerves when you got down and measure between the.
No, nerves come into play probably before the round starts. Once you get into it, it's just a routine. You go through your process and your procedure, and it's just a routine.
Absolutely. So, is there anything you can share with us? Is there anything you can share with us that happened that might be interesting to people to listen about, Wendy, during that sort of the week or so?
Probably not while I was on duty. I think things were pretty mundane while I was on duty, and I'm not aware of any really out there strange things that happen. Cause,
that's what we'd say anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm not aware of anything that was really oddball And anything that was off the green and funny, that's subject to Chatham House rules.
What goes on tour stays on tour.
Absolutely. So your fellow ITOs, there was one other from New Zealand. So what was it like to what sort of conversations did you have with ITOs from other countries? Were there similarities there? Like, did you talk about what it's like to umpire at your home countries? Was that a topic of conversation?
Yeah, and every country has their own little quirks. And I think that one of the quirks that the Southern Hemisphere umpires had a wee giggle over was that up in Scotland particularly, and England to a certain degree, they never wear their bowling shoes away from the green. Like, so we would get up in the morning and we'd just stick our bowling shoes on and walk down to the venue, but they would always wear street shoes and change when they got there. And that was something that the Australians and the New Zealanders were looking at each other and shaking their heads a wee bit, because we just thought, that's too many things to carry.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that sentiment.
Well, I mean, I could understand why they do that, because sometimes, you can carry stuff onto the green on your shoes and whatnot, potentially. And, yeah, maybe but down here we're a little bit more relaxed about it.
Yeah, absolutely, I think so. So where did you stay during the Commonwealth Games? Wendy, what was your accommodation like?
Well, we were, the games were centred on Birmingham, but we actually weren't in Birmingham. We were out at Leamington Spa, which was about 40 minutes towards London from Birmingham. And we stayed at the Leamington Spa Holiday Inn, which was just like being at home. It was absolutely lovely, and they looked after us and, accommodated us and took care of us. It was really good.
So how did you find you were talking about Leamington Spa, and we looked at the greens and they looked like it was all pretty cool. How was the facility? What did you think of the facility where the lawn bowls was?
The Victoria Park Bowling Club was truly impressive. 5 greens and an amazing club rooms. It was you probably saw it on the TV a bit, but quite an extensive club rooms and really nice. We didn't actually go into the club rooms too much because that was for the players. We basically had a technical official area in a tent out the back. Quite a nice tent, I have to say, but yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So I did go into the club rooms once or twice, and it looked very, very nice and very comfortable. Yeah, I was impressive. A little bit. I mean, we've got some nice ones here. Nine-Eye, the way they've redeveloped Nine-Eye, it was really nice, and I would say that was on a par with what I saw at Victoria Park, but Victoria Park was just slightly larger scale. Yeah,
that bigger scale. Was it tempting? I know when I watched bowls for a long time, it was really tempting to want to play. When you got back to New Zealand, did you have itchy fingers? Did you want to be playing a bit of lawn bowls, Wendy?
Yes. Straight out, simple answer, yes. And I did. We started. So we got back on the 6th of August, and our first match was on the 10th of September. I played a 2-day tournament down here, and then the following week we had opening day. We opened at our club, and I played opening day, and then I played the next day.
Brilliant.
2 trophies in a weekend. I was pretty pleased with myself.
Right, so it must have been watching all the bowlers at the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I think, and there's no doubt about it. One of the things about umpiring at that level is watching the shot selections that players make and how they convert heads to their favour. And I think you learn a little bit by watching that sort of thing.
Absolutely, that's fair enough. So, next plans, Wendy. What's up for the season coming up? What's next on your radar?
Next on my radar, well, there's a fair bit of umpiring around here. I do the administration for Canterbury Country Bowls under the umbrella of Bowls Canterbury. So, running a lot of their little rep matches, doing the admin for that. I'm coming up to Wellington for the World Champion of Champions singles. Hopefully going down to Alexandra for the national mixed pairs and fours. And I'm not sure what's happening with World Bowls Championships. They're in Gold Coast next year. Whether they will call for applications for that. If they do, I'll throw my hat in the ring.
Let's see what happens.
And got to do my reaccreditation for level 3 at the end of October. So. Yeah, lots of things going on.
So it's not like you get to come home and just relax for a little while. it's straight back into it.
Well, I did. I had a month.
A month. Oh, that's good. That's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us about your Commonwealth Games experience, Wendy. It's always interesting to hear. We've got one last question for you. It's our bonus question, so it's always very little to do with bowls. And recently it had been to do with food, but we've changed tack a little bit. So it's a two-part question. It's books. So how do you like to consume a book? Do you still read a book in the old-fashioned way, or do you listen to them? And secondly, is what's your favourite author or favourite book that you like to read?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Okay, I read. Yes, I read a lot, and I generally read probably 1 or 2 books a week, and I read on my Kindle on my phone because I have all my books on my Kindle on my phone.
Yeah.
So, favourite books, probably like science fiction, fantasy, but at the moment, I'm actually reading a Jeffrey Archer, Warwick Graham murder mystery thing. Yeah, so I have a lot of different authors that I read. I love Diana Gabaldon's books. I've read all of hers. That's the Highlander series.
Yes.
Outlander.
Yes, Outlander, and they made a good TV show.
Yeah, the TV show is not nearly as good as the books. The books are way better.
I'll have to read the books then, Wendy.
And I also recently read Where the Crawdads Sing. There's been a movie out, and I read the book. The book was absolutely brilliant.
Very interesting. That's good. I do like the. I do enjoy the Kindle. It makes life a bit easier than lugging around books.
Oh well, especially if you travel, because you can take your books with you. And it's not taking up space in your suitcase.
For sure. Oh, well, thank you very much, Wendy. It's been an informative conversation, and I'd like to wish you all the best for your upcoming season. I'm sure we'll see you around on the greens in the not too distant future.
Thank you for talking to us today, Wendy. And coming up next, we have Paul Hunt here on the Bowls Hour. Welcome back to the Bowls Hour, brought to you by Summerset Retirement Villages and Dynasty Apparel, and we are now speaking with Paul. How are you, Paul?
Fine, thank you. Fine.
Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
No, it's thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast. So I thought we'll start off with the fact that you're the newly appointed manager for Bowls Bar Plenty, or Bar Plenty Bowls, whichever way around you meant to say it. But we'll start right back at the beginning of sort of that journey. I just wanted to get, what's the first time you came across the Sport of Lawn Bowls that you can remember?
I guess my let's say my involvement in lawn bowls goes back to about 1997 when I was chief executive of Tower Insurance, and we entered into a sponsorship arrangement with Bowls New Zealand, and that was my first experience, and it's continued from there.
So when in 1997, when that happened, and you entered into this thing with Bowls New Zealand, and you sort of, I presume, you got to know the sport a little bit. Did you ever think it was something you would take up, Paul?
I mean, I've always been keen on sport. I've always participated in sport. Supported kids at their sport and so forth. So I guess it was always something that was on the horizon. But for me in those days, it was more cricket and golf. But yeah, I was well aware of the sport, and obviously, as a sponsor, I got invited to tournaments all around the country, presenting prizes and that sort of thing. So it was a good introduction to the sport.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get on to bowls, you've briefly mentioned other sports there. Can you talk us through what other sports you played in earlier on?
Oh, I guess if we
have enough time,
dredge the memory and go back to school days. I was a competent sportsman, not exceptional, but played a lot of cricket. Back in the day, I was at school, first 11, corresponding first 11s in Christchurch had people like Richard Hadley and John Wright and so forth in it. So I mixed with those guys, and then played football, played rugby, played golf, played tennis. But I guess at the end of the day, if you do reflect, it was cricket and golf that really held my interest.
For sure. So we fast forward now to taking up the game of lawn bowls. How did that happen for you? What was the first time you actually picked up a bowl and joined a club?
I was driving down Cameron Road in Tauranga about 3 and a bit years ago. Saw a bowling club there. I was having a bit of trouble with arthritis in my elbows playing golf, and I thought, oh well, I'll pop in and see what they do. A pretty friendly bunch here, and by the time I'd spent quarter of an hour looking around, they'd signed me up, and I was into it.
Excellent.
Couple of tricks up their sleeve.
Very good. So how did your first season go, Paul?
I guess like most beginners, inconsistent. I would say would be the operative word. But thoroughly enjoyable.
And how do you find like a lawn bowling club in comparison to some of the other sports that you've been involved in?
Well, I guess if you go back, to those days when we were sponsoring lawn bowls, and you experienced clubs then, and obviously the Tauranga Bowling Club now. I find them warm, welcoming. I think the camaraderie's fantastic. Competition's fantastic. I think they're very engaging.
Bowling clubs are a unique sporting club, I find. They have been around for a very long time, and a lot of them are in some very unique places. And I just have to say that the view that you guys have from your top green that looks just out across the water towards Mount Maunganui is incredible.
I'm looking at it right at the moment. But the Bay of Plenty Steamers are getting ready to play Northland this afternoon.
Ah, yes. I was something. There was a little snippet. What was it? The CEO of the Bay of Plenty Steamers gives you permission to take the day off tomorrow or to finish work early so that you can come on down and support them.
Oh, I'm sure that people will take that to heart.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good little promotional piece on Instagram.
Very good. Yeah. We'll get to not the crux of the matter, but to the thing I sort of preface. You've just been named. Can you tell us about the actual title for your role so I don't muddle it up, and then sort of what it involves now, please, Paul?
Yeah, it's the correct terminology is Bowls Bay of Plenty, and I'm the centre manager.
Cool. And how did that come about?
Well, I guess, again, tracking back to those days when I was chief executive of Tower and we were sponsoring bowls, my involvement started there after about 2 years or 3 years of the sponsorship, I guess. I was invited to join the board of Bowls New Zealand, and I guess I was the first non-bowler, non-bowling club member ever to be on the board of Bowls New Zealand. So that was my introduction to bowls management. I mentioned 3.5 years ago I was driving down Cameron Road and ended up joining the Tauranga Club. About 7 or 8 months after that, I was club president.
I was going to say, how long did it take?
Yeah. I guess they saw me coming. You might say.
when you signed that box, when you signed up and you ticked that box, it's like it's not yes, direct debit my fees. It's yes, I'm going to be club president soon.
It's just been a progression, and there was an opportunity to take on the centre management role, and I thought I could add some value there, and here we are.
So how long have you been in that role for, Paul?
4 months.
Cool. And have you found the first 4 months?
Oh, great. Bowls administration is a complicated beast.
Tell us about it.
I didn't realise how complicated it was, but it's great. It's challenging. It's interesting. I'm meeting great people. I'm going to great venues. I'm loving it.
Brilliant.
I think it's a really good time of the sport in New Zealand, Aotearoa in general, where a lot of bowling clubs and centres are seeing that there is the opportunity to leverage a lot more in their club space. It's not just about the bowls anymore, and if they can have the skilled people like yourself and other people out there in other centres that can help these clubs be businesses as opposed to community clubs, they don't have to rely on volunteers as much anymore. They can run themselves as a business. It's just going to be better for the sport going forward.
Absolutely, and whilst it's about day-to-day administration and that sort of thing, I firmly believe that people like myself, have a responsibility to leave a legacy, if you like, for future bowlers.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. That's good. So, looking forward over the next season, is there anything in the pipeline for Bowls Bay of Plenty that you're excited about, Paul?
I guess if you start at the top, I mean, we've got some extremely talented older bowlers and younger bowlers that are in our rep teams and that sort of thing. So, that's a focus for us. But equally, just engaging more social members who, we can turn into part-time or full-time members. That's an objective as well.
For sure, and I think I'll be surprised if it doesn't go well based on the on the competence you've shown in the interview, Paul. So it's some exciting stuff. We'll move on to the last question now, which has got absolutely nothing to do with bowls at all. And we've spoken to Mark Cameron earlier and asked him this question. We spoke to Wendy Sati before and asked her this question. It's about books, Paul. So it's a double-barreled question. Is that the way to put it, Erin?
Yep.
So we want to know how you consume books, how you read books. Like, do you listen to them or read them on a Kindle or read the old-fashioned way with an actual book
with pages?
And also who your favourite author is, or what your favourite book is.
No, I'm old-fashioned. I read the physical book, and whilst I don't have a favourite author, I do favour autobiographies. I love understanding how other people tick, how they've achieved things, and so forth. And I guess particularly sports persons' autobiographies. A classic that springs to mind is John McEnroe's. I thought that was fantastic.
And second, we might make this a triple barrel question. Because you read a traditional book, Paul, and it's got paper, and this is a question that we asked very, very early on. Are you a bookmark user, or do you fold the corner down, or do you just leave it open, like splayed on a table to keep your place?
No, I'm a bookmark user.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
That's
Got the respect for the
right
books.
way to be.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. See, we get to know you in your bowls environment as well as a little bit about yourself. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Paul.
Absolute pleasure.
It's been great hearing about all these excellent things that you've got going on Bay of Plenty, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
See ya.
Alex.
Yes.
Books. How do you consume your books?
Books are interesting because...
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Okay, so I've read a lot of books in my life.
Yes.
Because I couldn't read very well until I was 8 or 9, and my teacher said to my mother, I think you might need glasses. So I was in the lowest reading group, and I got glasses, and suddenly I could see, which is helpful.
That does make
I've
help.
erased, I just read like a lot of books, and I can read quite quickly.
Yes.
So I consume my books. I don't really mind. I find it easier if I want a book, I'll just download it, read it on my phone, and finish it nice and fast. But I'm happy enough to read it the old-fashioned way. And over lockdown, I learnt that I could listen to books and work at the same time. And that was quite, depending on the work, obviously. But for some of there's a few like data entry things. It's nice to listen to some books. My favourite book of all time is The Stand, Erin.
The Stand.
It's written by Stephen King.
Okay.
I would read it again. It's thousands of pages long.
Okay.
To quickly put it into what happens, essentially the world ends, because of a pandemic. Who would have thought that would happen?
Yeah.
And it follows a group of people as they try and rebuild society pretty
Okay.
much. And there's also a supernatural element in there. So it's just a mix of all these really cool genres, and I think the best book I've ever read.
Okay, nice.
What about you?
Well, I'm very old fashioned. I like reading books for like in paper. Quite often I've been, falling asleep and they land on your face and stuff.
I remember that.
I would read more books, but oh my goodness, I'd read them purely just to have a library with one of those ladders that go up because your shelves are so high. Like, that's what I love about books. But I do have a Kindle. I like my Kindle. It's easy when you're traveling. Wendy probably loved her Kindle when she was going overseas and on the planes, because that's a long way to get to Birmingham
For sure.
from here.
Yep.
I have listened to books when I've been driving places, and I think my favourite audiobook has been Stephen Fry's version of Harry Potter, because he does the characters very, very well. I don't have a favourite. I don't have a favourite author. I don't have a favourite book, because there are just too many.
Too many
It
to choose
ebbs
from.
and flows. So when it gets into summer, it's just one of those things I do. I just churn through the Harry Potter series. And I do what Mark's doing at the moment, going through all of the Jack Reacher stories, Lee Child.
Good.
The Little Prince, probably. If I had to pick an all-time book, I think that would be the loveliest book, so I'd rate that one pretty high. French
Okay,
book.
yes.
It's got a movie out of it and stuff like that, but yeah. One
Fair
day I'll
enough.
read it in French.
It'll be interesting. So
Don't ask me when, but
one day.
one day.
That's interesting. So we've got a few questions to ask our community from this week, don't we,
Yes,
Erin?
we
want
do.
to know feedback on what you think the best way is to find a winner,
Yes.
not Googling.
Not
we
Googling.
We want to know if you think there should be a third and fourth playoff, and also what's your favourite book and how do you read them?
Exactly. And on that note, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bowls Hour, the show for all things bowls. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, remember to share it around. We can be found on Facebook every week from 7 p.m, as well as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, the Bowls New Zealand website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next week for more talk about everything bowls. Until then, roll on.